Our Sunday question and answer program. Please go ahead with your call.
Good afternoon, Chris. How are you today? Hope all is well.
I'm
Um,
doing well, thank you. Please go ahead.
I just want to say I've been listening in the past couple of weeks and months, and it's been some really fine teaching coming from E-Bible Fellowship. It's accurate, it's to the point. It's definitely teaching concerning our days. So, um, it's wonderful. In regards to family radio, I still do listen to family radio primarily for the music. And I once called in and made a statement on this program that family radio is a dangerous place. Those were my words to listen to. And and then afterwards, I did, uh, you know, thought about it. I said, did I say the right thing? Was I correct? But I just want to say this. I remember leading up to May 21, 2011, I called the open forum and asked Mr. Campin. I believe he was teaching on Jeremiah 16, and he was also teaching about the 5 months. And I'd asked the question, what will happen to family radio during that 5 month period? And Mr. Campin responded, he does not know what God will do with family radio. Because obviously we're living in a day that we can see what God has done with family radio, because it is far away from the truth. Um, it is not uh, the same ministry that led many to truth. Um, so these individuals who are questioning, it, it is quite obvious. Family radio main objective is contrary to what the Bible is teaching. I was just looking at Jeremiah 16 again, and as I look through this chapter here, it's, it's basically outlining what we are to do, and maybe I need to make greater effort to not even tune in and take your suggestion as to downloading songs on the internet, which I do. I record family radio and I play it in my car, primarily for the music again. Um, so it's 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 it is trying times, for me and for many. But God would not forsake His own, because He will allow His own to know truth from false from the false teaching. So again, I just want to say, E-Bible Fellowship is on the money, is on point, um, and I'm not trying to pass judgment. I'm just speaking truth. So that's it.
Well, yeah, and we have to keep in mind that um, a ministry or a church, it it's never sufficient to operate on reputation, on what has been done in the past. What has been one of the major um, failings of the churches and congregations? See, there was a high watermark of the Reformation. There were very faithful men who God used at that time: Calvin, Luther, Knox, Zwingli, and others, and they taught many good things. But you see, a church can't live off that, can it? Like the Lutheran Church cannot live off the fact that Luther, in all probability, was a child of God, or the Presbyterians, they cannot live off of what Knox did or taught, and you can't continue. In other words, uh, faithfulness is not something that has been done in the past, but it's something that must be accomplished in the present. And when a ministry like Family Radio, we all think of Mr. Camping, very faithful man. Yes. And actually Family Radio could have continued to be faithful by highlighting his teaching, by correcting some of the things and trying to edit out certain things. And of course, they have the music, they have the wonderful Bible reading, and they could have continued along those lines, but they've decided to go another way that is contrary to many of the things that Mr. Camping taught. And so we can't become sentimental and think, well, I love family radio, or I used to love family radio because it brought me so much blessing, and I love Mr. Camping's teaching. It was his ministry, and therefore, on what has happened in the past, I'm still going to listen today. No, we don't do that. We can't do that. And it's the same thing with E-Bible Fellowship. E-Bible Fellowship today is teaching the truth. I believe, by God's grace, and people should check that out to make sure, but we're teaching the truth, that, and God has continued to open up information, and we're teaching it. However, if we get to a point where we stop teaching it, or maybe I die, maybe something happens to me, and it's no longer teaching that, well, I would expect God's elect to turn away from it, to say, well, we go where the truth is, and it's another way of saying you go where the food is. You go where the water of the gospel is, where the spiritual nourishment is. That's where God leads us, by still waters and green pastures. We don't go to a place that is like a church, which is a desolate wasteland, and we don't go to a ministry that is denying truths that it once taught, that have not been proven inaccurate. So there is a principle that applies. A church cannot live off a former reputation. We don't go to a church today because they used to be faithful a while ago, and it would apply to a ministry too. We don't keep involved with a ministry if it has ceased to be faithful. But thank you for calling and sharing.